We've got monsters. We've got monks. Are either of them a problem for the Batman? Come along and find out in today's double feature. Hello everyone, my name is Juan Wilson. Thanks for joining me here today. Today's going to be a quick one. We're going to do something new in terms of a format and try kind of a double feature covering two stories today, which I thought to do just because they're kind of connected. We're covering Batman and the Monster Men and Batman and the Mad Monk, both written by Matt Wagner in 2006-2007, and these were fun. I actually really enjoyed these, so we'll kind of just share my thoughts about both of them, just kind of a quick review, quick summary of them, and let me know kind of your guys' thoughts around this format, because some of the stories I'm sure will be more interwoven and interconnected like these ones, and they just are kind of quick and simple, and just want to cover my thoughts briefly about them. But with this one, I guess starting off with Batman and the Monster Men, we have some prominent characters that we follow. Of course, we have Batman, but then we also have Julie Madsen, who is Batman or Bruce Wayne's love interest. Her father, Norman Madsen, who's a businessman. We also have Sal Maroni as a prominent character in this, one of the crime bosses, as well as Hugo Strange, who's a new villain that we're introduced to for the first time, who's really fascinating as a villain, very smart, and he's actually taking these human DNA samples and creating kind of out of a lab these monster men. Who would have thought, right? And they're these, I don't know, like 10-foot tall, huge guys, and they're just these monsters. And one thing that I really liked out of this, both of these stories really, is that this is probably the darker or more gritty, definitely more blood and gore and violence in these ones. And I enjoyed that. Certain parts of this, one of my favorite parts was when Batman infiltrates, this facility of Hugo Strange, and he's trying to figure out where all these murders are, these bodies are being kind of found in these sewers, all mangled, and he infiltrates this lab and gets locked into the room with these monsters and has to figure out how to fight these giant monsters. And for one of the first times, I feel like we see Batman kind of outmatched, and we see how vulnerable he really is, because he's just a man, and he's, he has to kind of outsmart them. He uses his gadgets to just escape, basically. And I was on the edge of my seat just reading that. Like, how is he going to get away from this? They could just easily crush him. So that was really fun to read that. There's Hugo Strange is doing business with Sal Maroni to get money for his tests and his projects. And so he's kind of reluctantly doing business with Sal Maroni. And then we have Norman Madsen, who's a businessman who also owes money to Sal Maroni. And it's really interesting how things kind of play out, because it kind of, there's like this web of connection between all these characters, and Batman's just kind of in the middle of it, just trying to figure things out. And we see throughout the story that because Norman owes Sal some money, he's super paranoid, that he's just doing business with these crooks. And there's a moment where, just kind of accidentally, he gets freaked out thinking that Batman is out to get him. And we really see the fear that Batman has over people. Even right from the beginning, we see Sal Maroni trying to interrogate this guy, get information out of him. They're like burning his eyeball, and he won't even give him information. And then the minute that Batman shows up, he just spills the beans. It just kind of goes to show, how much fear, really has as a power over somebody. And so we see that with Norman Madsen, as he thinks that Batman's out to get him. He thinks that Maroni sent Batman to kind of collect a debt. And so he just becomes super paranoid over both of these stories. And then it's funny because Batman gets involved. Julie, the daughter of Norman, kind of convinces Bruce, like, she's like, oh my gosh, like something's, I think my father's in trouble. And so he kind of takes on, he dons the cowl and cape and goes in as Batman to kind of spook Sal Maroni and tell him to cut ties with Norman Madsen and clear his debt. And that's when the climax happens and everything kind of comes to a head. All the characters kind of come together, and simultaneously Hugo Strange is also attacking Sal Maroni's estate with all these monsters, and it's just a pretty bloody, gruesome scene, you know. There was even one part where the monsters are like tied together and they just beat each other to a bloody pulp, which was really insane. Yeah, really cool scene. I mean, I really love the action and all of this, and I'd say, you know, ultimately I enjoyed it. It seemed a little like lackluster in terms of story. It was like cool action and things like that. You know, I thought that the way that it should have ended, at one point, you know, Sal Maroni goes and kind of, or one of his thugs anyways, goes and tries to bully Hugo Strange in the lab, and he has all this lab equipment, and the thug is just smoking a cigarette, and he throws the cigarette into like some beaker full of some chemical, and I'm like, that's how the comic should have ended. It should have just, that was pretty early on, probably in issue number 2. He chucks that thing in there and it just explodes or something. I'm like, that was probably the dumbest thing that anybody's ever done. You know, who knows how flammable that thing could have been. But yeah, you know, not too rich in story, but I feel like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed similar things from previous stories, just seeing the fear, seeing Batman's character unfold a little bit more, and just seeing him in action. You know, we even saw the Batmobile for the first time, which is really cool. I believe it was the first time. Yeah, I think it was. I'm trying to remember now as I've done some more reading, and it's just me trying to think back on some of these things. But getting into the next one, you know, Batman and the Mad Monk. So with this one, we actually continue with some of the same characters. You know, Julie still doesn't know why Bruce is basically never around. You know, Gordon, he's still basically getting hazed by crooked cops, and Norman is still super paranoid. Batman's still just being Batman, you know, solving crimes and whatnot, and we got Alfred. You know, he's always the MVP. You know, the boss of the whole thing. But we have these new characters now, these new villains, Dela, I believe, and Nikolai, who are part of more cult shenanigans. So a lot of cult shenanigans within Gotham. I'm kind of like, you know, where do they find all these cult followers for all these cults? You know, it's kind of interesting how so many people in Gotham are so willing to join all these different cults. I think it was because from Batman Shaman, you know, he just kind of took out the cult leader and everybody dissipated and just went home happy, and then waited for the next cult leader to come and rise up so that they could join another little club. So it's kind of funny. I just like think about that. I'm like, there's so many people here. Like, where do these people all come from? You know, how do they find them? But anyways, you know, Dela and Nikolai, you know, they're doing some more cult stuff, but this time, you know, it's not just to cover up for money laundering like in Shaman. This one is, you guessed it, you know, I know it's obvious, vampires. You know, who would have thought, you know, vampires and Batman? It was definitely unexpected for me. At first when I saw it, I was like, is this really vampires? Like, it seems kind of strange, but I think, again, you know, I'm not quite used to, since I'm new to comics, some of these more supernatural elements. I just don't really expect them, but I think, you know, why wouldn't it make sense? I mean, we got superheroes in these worlds, magic. Why wouldn't there be, you know, monsters like this, like vampires, you know? So I very quickly accepted it, you know, but Julie actually gets wrapped up in all this vampire cult stuff, and she ends up going to this castle, and you think she would have picked up on all the vampire vibes. I mean, there's got dark, spooky castle. This lady Dela's dressed up like a vampire gothic attire, you know, and then we got this creepy looking Dracula looking guy, and but anyway, she gets kind of hypnotized, kind of controlled. She gets bit, and Bruce ends up seeing this bite on her, and he starts trying to figure this stuff out, you know, figure out where, again, more deaths have been happening, people being found all mangled and bitten and things like that. So Bruce actually goes and infiltrates this castle. Really cool scene there. I like how he shows up. He actually has a fight with some dogs, which was really intense. And if you thought that he was an animal lover, I mean, hearkening back to Batman Year One, he actually saves a little kitty cat from the SWAT team when they're trying to shoot and kill Batman. So I was like, oh man, this guy, he's an animal lover. Batman loves animals. He doesn't just fight criminals saving people. He saves animals 100% of the time. But in this case, this is, I think, the first time Batman crosses the line of Batman kills. And because he just totally breaks this dog's back. And it was a pretty brutal looking scene. I was like, wow, holy cow, this is pretty intense. But there's really cool scene. He falls into this trap. All these spikes come out, and really fun stuff to read. Of course, like I mentioned before, Norman is just freaked out the entire time, and he unfortunately kind of has a sad ending here. He ends up trying to pay Maroni back, and Maroni's just like, Batman scared him straight and told him to cut ties with Norman and clear his debts, and so he, there's just a bunch of misunderstanding and misconceptions of things, and everybody thinks Batman's out to get him, and they're totally terrified. So Norman kind of takes things into his own hands and goes to kill Maroni, and just totally gets gunned down, and he gets ended. And it was pretty heartbreaking for Norman to go out like that. It leads into the finale where Batman finally infiltrates the castle, saves Julie just in time, fights off, these cult people. We see some action with the Batmobile. He dukes it out with Nikolai, and they start fighting it out on a roof, and Nikolai, vampire guy, he gets cooked, quite literally. He gets struck by lightning, and then Julie, she passes out from all this smoke, and I guess the only way that Bruce could really bring her back was to just take his mask off and speak to her in his normal voice or something. So she wakes up and sees Bruce as Batman, so she figures everything out, and she, because Norman dies basically because of Batman, because of being terrified of him, Julie just, she can't take that anymore. She's not up for the Batman life, and so she moves to Africa, joins the Peace Corps, and that's kind of that, and it was really interesting, really cool stories. I mean, both of these were just fun. I think they were just kind of fun. Like, if this was a movie, it'd just be kind of a fun popcorn movie, nothing amazing in terms of storytelling, just kind of fun action, fun things to see. This one I didn't really have any complaints about. Not that deep or rich of a story as well. I still am trying to figure out if Nikolai was actually a vampire in the end of all this, because Batman was like, I don't believe you're a vampire, and I don't even really know at the end of it, but he was definitely sucking people's blood and sleeping in coffins, so that's vampire enough for me. But ultimately, I really did enjoy both of these. I like that they even had a nod to, I believe, Robin at the end of this one with the Flying Grayson's billboard. I believe that's Robin, and so I'm excited for that kind of stuff. I'm really excited to see those things come together, and so individually, as I read these, I'd say I kind of ranked them like a 6 out of 10. They were just fun, but together, I actually really enjoyed the connections that they made with some of the characters. I wish there was a little bit more connections in terms of connecting the plots together somehow. I don't know if there was really a way that they could have done that, but together, I'd say that I'd give them like a 7 out of 10. At the end of it, it was like a 7 out of 10 experience. Individually, a 6 out of 10. So I'd say you have to read both of these together to really get the full experience, because I think that arc with Norman Madsen, seeing him all paranoid, was just really cool. So two fun reads. I'm really enjoying this Batman reading journey. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know if you're reading along, if there's any that you really look forward to me reading, anything you think I need to read next. And as always, we're going to keep going with this and just keep chugging along. There's a lot of reading to do, and I'll try to keep things creative as we go, and maybe do some more of these double features. But with that said, I hope you guys are doing well, and we'll catch you in the next one.